How many times have you come across a game that has just blown you away by the sheer insanity of it even existing? Something crazy like, I don't know, like Far Cry 5 on the 3DS. You're like, wow, I wonder how they got that to work. That's insane. Oh, I see. They didn't.
The gaming industry is riddled with rubbish attempts at porting games to systems they never should have been on to begin with. If you're not super in on video game lingo, you may be saying, well, what exactly is a port? Well, a port is a complete conversion of a game from one system it was originally built to run on to a completely different system. For example, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was originally an arcade game, but it was ported to the Dreamcast, PS2, and Xbox. Sometimes ports are great, and almost one-to-one representations of the games they were originally, like The Witcher 3 on Switch, or Metal Gear Solid on PS Vita, or Doom on a Kodak camera. But sometimes they're just unplayable, disastrous messes. Today we're going to look at some of the worst, most horrific ports of all time.
Sonic. I just can't seem to stay away from you. You took over most of my childhood and now continue to haunt me well into my adult years. But I can't stay mad at you. Just look at that smile. Actually, I changed my mind. I can and will stay mad at you. Sonic Genesis Advance is poopy butt garbage. It is without a doubt the worst way to play the first Sonic game.
I got this game for Easter years ago. Sure, when you're 10 years old in 2006, this is pretty cool. I guess it's a better gift to get than the other Sonic 06, which actually came out on the same day. But dude, look at this. The game constantly suffers from slowdown. I wanna make sure you're soaking that in. Slowdown in a Sonic game. Sonic takes up too much space on the damn screen. He might as well be paying rent. It's impossible to see what's in front of you or below you at times. Now this isn't really a problem for me. I've played this game about 100,000 times. I know exactly what's coming and when it's coming. But if you're new to the game, this would be a little difficult for you. To top it off, the game feels... I don't know how to describe this. It feels wrong? Like it doesn't feel like Sonic 1 feels. Sometimes Sonic doesn't get nearly enough speed, like right here. I know he should be able to clear this loop with a spin. Sometimes he seems to just be going a little too slow. I have no data to back this up or anything, but it just feels awkward. All the music is completely off-key and just sounds horrible. Not quite as bad as... but still pretty not great. There is one addition. Sonic can spin dash like he could in Sonic 2, but it's really not worth it. I want to keep ripping into this poor game, but what else can I say? I mean... it's just Sonic 1 on the Genesis in its worst possible form. You want to play Sonic on the go? Buy the game on your phone for $2, or buy it on the Switch. Just, please God, anything but this. The saddest part of all of this is that apparently a popular member of the Sonic ROM hacking community, Stealth, was able to come up with a much better, more functional version of the game on the Game Boy Advance by himself. And though it's only the first 3 levels of Green Hill Zone, hot damn, look at this. It's like night and day. I've even put it on my flash card to prove it's running on Game Boy hardware, and just look at the difference. He included the spin dash and even included Knuckles and Tails as playable characters. How is the Sega published version as bad as it is? That's just embarrassing.
It's a little unusual to come by a bad port in today's times, but it does still happen, such as the case with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds on the Xbox One.
This game is such an interesting treat to talk about. It originally launched for $30 as part of Xbox's Game Preview program, which is sort of like a Steam Early Access thing. You're paying the full price up front for a game that may or may not work at any point. You're basically buying into a beta. Hardcore fans of PUBG and people looking to dip their toes in the Battle Royale scene are really excited at the proposition of being able to jump into the 100-man fray on console. But when the game launched...
You think this is funny?
In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
Well, Mr. Funny Man, is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crabby... Oh my goodness!
It was filled with a gratuitous flood of glitches, bugs, memory leaks, crashes, pretty much every conceivable issue. The game launched on both Xbox One and Xbox One X, with the regular Xbox One being the much worse version. The YouTube channel Digital Foundry found that the game could get to as low as 12 frames per second at times.
Seriously, how does my phone run a game better than my $300 console? What's the matter with you, huh?
Collision detection just straight up didn't exist. Players could swim through the air. Entire sections of the game just didn't load. And when they did, they often trapped players in the floor or dropped them through the map. Releasing in 2017, the game was still considered unplayable by many well into 2018. Every update failed to address these serious issues that plagued the game. Finally, around September of 2018, the game was hit with a massive patch and bumped up to a full release. Looking at it today, it's definitely in a more playable state than it once was, with only occasional hiccups, even on the original Xbox. But it was still one of the most pathetic ports I've ever seen. I mean, the game barely runs on PC. I don't know how they thought they were going to get it running on Xbox with no issues.
It's Frank. Frank West. Remember that name, because the whole world's gonna know it in 3 days.
In Dead Rising, journalist Frank West is tasked with investigating the Williamette Mall, which is currently being flooded from every possible corner with hundreds of zombies. It can be incredibly easy to become overwhelmed if you stay in the same area for so long, forcing you to stay on the run while you fight back the herd. Throughout the mall, there are assorted items to throw, eat, and collect. There's also all kinds of survivors that need your help, and psychopaths who definitely don't. It is without a doubt one of my favorite game franchises of all time. I've probably spent over 500 hours in the franchise as a total. And though there have been some recent missteps, Dead Rising 4, the series has brought me more than enough joy throughout the years. But let me tell you, I almost hated this franchise. My first exposure to it was...
What in the world?
Dead Rising, Chop Till You Drop, is almost a completely different game. I mean, just look at Frank, he's walking around like he shit his pants. Let's start with some of the nice things about the game. Do a top 10 here. Alright, number 10, the game runs. That's pretty good. Number 9, the cover art's not bad, it's pretty fly. That's it, we're done. In Dead Rising Wii, everything has been scaled back. Locations, usable items, zombies. What is this, like 13 zombies? 14? Every segment where Frank would use his camera and, be a journalist has been completely removed. From what I understand, this game has been built on the bones of the Wii version of Resident Evil 4, meaning that if it wasn't possible in Resident Evil 4, it's not possible here. In the original, you've got an inventory system that allows you to stockpile a bunch of weapons. Baseball bats, frying pans, swords, whatever you want. Guns generally are pretty slow and unreliable, not your go-to. But not in the Wii version. Oh no, guns are your best friend. So much of the inventory space is taken up by ammo and guns, and you can only carry items that have ranged properties, like fire extinguishers and cooking oil. Every melee weapon has a standard attack and a strong attack, with the strong attack requiring you to swing the Wiimote around, more often than not leaving you at a really big disadvantage. Some of the goofy weapons like the skateboard made it into the Wii version, but you can't take them with you. Once you pick something else up, you drop what you're holding. The inventory system for this game is horrible. I mean, in the original game, you can pick up anything and then swap left and right with the left and right shoulder buttons. But in this game, you have to pause the game, go into your inventory system, click something, equip it, and then back out. Not only that, but like I said, you can only pick up one melee weapon at a time, so you can't stockpile weapons. So you're forced to use guns to really make any progress. What are you doing? Move out of the way! So many features of the game are completely stripped away. In the original, you've got a constant timer forcing you to keep moving throughout the campaign. If you aren't where you need to be at the right time, well, game over. That timer is completely gone in the Wii version. Instead, it's replaced by a time trial clock. Why? I mean, who cares? I can't even race anybody to see how quick I can complete the missions. This is completely pointless. In the original, dressing Frank up in all sorts of goofy outfits and watching him interact with characters in cutscenes was pretty fun, but there's barely any outfits in the Wii version and all the cutscenes are pre-rendered, so that fun's dead too. I mean, at least I can run around the mall as BoJack Horseman.
The PS Vita was a technical marvel way ahead of its time. I mean, so many things about this little device just blew my mind. It was capable of PS3 level graphics, had an amazing library of exclusive titles, and you could answer Skype on the thing. Not like you would want to answer a Skype call on this thing. I mean, what are you, like a psychopath? It was also a port machine. I mean, you think the Switch is getting crazy with ports? You definitely didn't own a Vita then.
Given the amount of ports the Vita received, you could tell right away when a port is amazing and when it's really bad. Unfortunately, such is the case with Resident Evil Revelations 2. Just shuffling through these Vita M&Ms, look at how bad this icon looks compared to the rest of these. If that's not already an indication of how little they cared, I don't know what is. I mean, you could have done this, or this. Like, why? Why does it look like that? This port, oh man, where to start? Well, the load times are outstandingly long for a handheld game. Up to 1 minute and 30 seconds, in fact. This isn't like the Switch, where I can forgive the long times, because the Switch is also like, a home console. No, this is handheld only. Remember when I said some nice things about Dead Rising? And one of them was, the game runs? Yeah, well, that can't be said about Resident Evil. This game shakes along at a steady 13 FPS, chugging around like a tortoise on opioids. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, it'll turn into a literal slideshow at 2 frames per second.
So no, the game doesn't run. It walks. It barely walks. It basically crawls.
Now, getting into the thick of things, look at this shit. Look at how bad this looks. Pretty much all the reflections, dynamic lighting, and shadows have been turned off, and the game still barely runs. I'm gonna put the original Resident Evil Revelations on 3DS next to this. No reason, just want to put it there. That's on the 3DS. A inferior system. While the control layout is pretty close to the other console versions of Revelations, the Vita lacks R2 and L2 buttons, so actions like crouching and healing are done by touching the front and back touchscreens. This gets very annoying very quickly, as you find yourself sometimes accidentally healing when you don't mean to. While the FPS, controls, and visuals are all a problem, none of them compare to the problem of the sound. Now, normally, you don't really think about how important high-quality sound is, but this...
Group when the body fell. It could be anywhere. It's too dark to see. Shine the light.
What the hell are you even saying? I can't understand anything! It sounds like the lines were recorded through 2 tin cans tied together by a piece of string. Thank God there's subtitles. I haven't altered this audio at all, by the way. I want you to know that. The leveling is atrocious. Most of the time, the music overpowers the dialogue. Not like I can really understand it anyway, but still. There's parts where a character is talking through a radio and the quality is better than the other character's audio. It's hilarious. All the atmosphere of the original game is just completely lost. I can't even convince myself to be mildly scared in what is supposed to be a survival horror.
For those of you who haven't played this game, Revelations 2 is designed as a co-op experience. I mean, sure, you could go through it solo, but things go a lot smoother if you have a competent partner.
That's not even an option here unless you play in raid mode, which puts you in a wave after wave fight against the undead with a buddy. It's a great thing to have portable to kill a couple hours. Unless you're playing on the Vita. All the issues I discussed so far come to an absolute head in this groggy, sluggish, incomplete mess. I'm just gonna, throw Resident Evil Mercenaries 3DS right next to you for a second, If you follow me a second just across the hall here for Dead or Alive 5. Yeah, that's running on the Vita. Look at this. Now back to this. Here's Street Fighter Cross Tekken, also on the Vita. Now back to this. Same developer, by the way. Still Capcom. It just begs the question, why does this even exist? No option for multiplayer, the game barely runs, the system doesn't even have the buttons it needs. It sounds like trash. I mean, why? Why go through the effort of porting it? I think the thing that just blows me away above everything about this game, though, is looking at reviews that were out at the time. Most of them are basically like, yeah, runs like shit, borderline unplayable, 8 out of 10. How did that happen? If you really want to experience Resident Evil Revelations 2 on the go, buy it, you guessed it, on the Switch, where all the features are available, including local multiplayer and even gyro aiming.
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God.
When it comes to gripping narratives that really drive to your core, BioShock is a cut above the rest. A telling and engaging story about the dangers of a utopia formed by greed and capitalism, and the importance of choice and objectivism. The storytelling threads that weave together to create this masterpiece tie themselves closely to the inventive and enjoyable adrenaline-racing combat system. It was a kind of first-person shooter that had not been seen or experienced by the masses. All these things combined to create what is, without a doubt, one of the greatest video games of all time. And there's no better way to experience this amazing game than by playing it on your mobile phone, of course. See, around 2007, flip phones got super popular. I mean, more popular than crack, and crack was pretty popular in 2007. If you were in primary school and you didn't have a cell phone, you were basically doomed to be unpopular. Phones had taken over the general population, and gaming companies definitely started to notice. Companies like Sega and Konami began publishing their own properties on cell phones, hoping to grab the attention of the average person. When I finally got my first flip phone in 2009, I was blown away by all the crazy stuff in the game store. Crash Bandicoot, God of War, Kingdom Hearts. When you're 13, the idea of playing Kingdom Hearts on a cell phone immediately turns your brain to dust. Something that actually started to happen around this time as well was the death of movie tie-in games. Companies instead opted to spend less money to make mobile phone game tie-ins, since they would cost less to produce and often yielded more return. Based on my experiences alone, all my friends around me had their games loaded up with Tomb Raider and Guitar Hero, and I was drooling over Kingdom Hearts, so it's safe to say that the marketing was working. In early 2008, 2K and Irrational licensed BioShock to a team called India Games Fun for the purpose of bringing BioShock to the mobile phone. India Games Fun worked on many mobile games around this time, like Garfield and Predator and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And like many of the other popular franchises on the App Store at the time, the game had to be designed within limitations, becoming a top-down isometric action game for most cell phones. The work done in this version of the game is certainly commendable, and honestly puts it above most of the mobile games out at the time. There is clear love and care that went into converting the game down to a more digestible form, even going as far to recreate the cutscenes as best they could. The director of BioShock Mobile, Hiroshi Oberoi, says this was one of the most challenging games he'd ever worked on. We had to play around with blacking out the screen in 2D and showing certain parts of it, and we were using this game engine which we had to make considerable changes to make sure we got the same feeling of the 3D experience. While this is pretty impressive, in my opinion it doesn't capture the real explorative and engaging nature of the original BioShock. However, there existed a second version of BioShock Mobile, BioShock 3D. Designed exclusively for the Verizon subscription service, Vcast, BioShock 3D was intended to be a complete remake of the game for phones capable of rendering 3D. This was, at the time, one of the most impressive feats ever achieved for mobile gaming.
We've done some dynamic lighting techniques which we feel has not been attempted before in a 3D mobile game.
The game was so large, it was split into several different parts. You could basically only have one part of the game on your phone at a time. Each part of the game also had a separate cost. Ultimately, only 2 parts of the 3D version were ever produced, with the rest being cancelled. The files, to my knowledge, have also never been dumped online anywhere. The only footage I could find has been uploaded by a YouTuber called Fitherwinkle, who happened to own a phone that still had the game installed. Now, the reason this is one on my list of worst ports is because 1, it's just freaking amazing and bizarre. We never even think about all these old cell phone games we used to play that are just lost to time. And 2, while it's technically impressive, it's gotta be the worst way to experience BioShock. Only 2 years later, a true complete version of BioShock Mobile was created directly by 2K Games and released on the Apple Store. Even though it now no longer exists either, it was a much better experience than this.
Well, that's all the time I've got. I've got to get back to playing Animal Crossing New Horizons on my Nintendo Switch.